How's it going, everybody? So, this is actually going to be the first episode of a series that I wanted to do for a while called Underrated and Underused. So, this is actually the first monster I'm going to be doing. Before we get into it, first off, I'd like to say we had a somewhat successful TOA hard rush. We actually did make rank 4, which was actually pretty impressive. We were going for rank 1, but we got stuck on a stage for about an hour. But if we do keep this up, I don't have any doubt that maybe one day we will be able to get rank 1 TOA hard. So don't miss out on those streams, guys. Really awesome. That being said, on TOA hard 90, guess what we got? We got the Light Samurai. That's right. Now this bad boy is absolutely incredible. Of course his rune build is not finished, and of course it's far from being done, but we are trying out some rage build and we're actually going to try to get him around 100% crit rate. Might be a little bit difficult, but I think we should be able to do it. So alright, that being said, let's already get into the underused and underrated series. So we're actually going to be doing Shi Hou this time. Now believe it or not, Shi Hou, I actually do feel is actually pretty underrated and very, very underused. Now, I considered him one of the worst Nat 5s in the game. A lot of people consider him the worst Nat 5 in the game, and he is actually on my top 10 worst Nat 5 list. Now, just because I'm doing an underused and underrated series on him does not necessarily mean he isn't one of the worst Nat 5s, but he definitely is overlooked. So just looking at his skill set, he actually does have a pretty unique skill set. So his first skill attacks an enemy and stuns them for a 50% chance when max skilled. His second skill is really, really bad. I'm just going to say that now. His second skill is just garbage. The multipliers suck. And I really, really wish they would fix this. They need to do something to this second skill. So he reduces the attack bar by 30% of all enemies, but it's not even with a 100% chance. It's with a 75% chance, which is just garbage. It's just straight up garbage, but that's okay. His third skill and his first skill is all you need. His third skill summons an alter ego that attacks the enemy 4 times, granting you invincibility for 1 turn and immunity for 2 turns. It's basically Chloe's buff when you use this skill. If this attack gets 3 or more critical hits, the cooldown of this skill will be decreased by 1 turn. So it's a 4-turn cooldown. If you do have him high crit rate, it is end up being a 3-turn cooldown, which means he'll only spend 1 turn out of immunity, which is quite nice, especially when you run him on violent runes like this. Now you're probably looking at this and you're probably like, Reafi, those stats like just look awful. But you're gonna see why I ruined him this way, okay? So, looking at his runes, I ruined him Violent Revenge, Speed, Crit Damage, Attack. I set him with leftover runes. Okay, remember that. Leftover runes, which is why he probably doesn't have as much attack. So I've got this kinds of runes on him. And even though his attack is pretty low, he hits around 30 to 35k on his third skill. I set him up to be somewhat decently fast, 167 speed, which is actually pretty decent. It should be more, it should be higher. I think he should be around 180 speed as a nuker. Build him up like Theomars, high crit rate, and then if you build him with enough HP, he'll be able to just keep getting off that third skill non-stop, and he's actually a great unit to run on full water teams. One of the other things that actually makes him quite good is that he has a 33% attack power leader skill. So that just helps a ton because if you're just, lacking a leader skill, you can throw him in there for 33% attack power leader skill, and he can basically take care of his own. Now this stun on the first skill is actually quite nice. When I'm not using the third skill, I'm actually using this first skill to try to stun people. The second skill just really isn't worth it. So I use this first skill to try to get that stun off. Now, of course, I run in with Varad sometimes, but I'm going to go ahead and show you guys how he does in PvP. Now, of course, I would probably never bring him in Arena, and that's just because he's a single target nuker, and there's really no place that you can really use him in Arena past once you start actually making an actual team. But that being said, I can actually show you that he is actually pretty good for Guild Wars. I don't have a Guild War fight right now, but it is actually kind of similar to Arena if you set it up correctly. So this is where it would be pretty similar. I would use Galleon Leader or Shi Hou Leader and use him in this type of situation, except without Amir. And then, here you're probably looking and you're probably thinking you should probably use that AoE skill. And I probably would, except that AoE skill is kind of garbage and I just want to use this third skill. So right there, he does just under 40k damage if he crits on all hits, which is pretty good. I mean, if you're looking at the setup that I have for him, that's actually pretty freaking good. And if you build him like full damage based with no speed, you could probably hit way up there. But there's absolutely no necessity to ruin him with that much damage. If the most enemies have around 50 to 60k HP tops, then there's absolutely no necessity to make him do more damage than that. So you can shift over those kinds of stats to more speed, more HP, which is exactly what I did here. So you'll notice that he actually has quite a bit of HP. His attack power kind of sucks, but the base attack is high enough to where I can run him with just about equally as much of the plus 889 whatever attack. Fast speed, a decent amount of defense. He's a little bit low on crit rate. Typically, you'll want him at least over 85% or 85% or higher, because if he has 85%, he will 100% crit on fire monsters, but you also want him to be able to crit on water monsters because most of the time you're going to bring him on water and fire teams. His crit damage is also a little bit low, but he is running on violent. You don't really need too much accuracy for him. You'll probably want just a little bit just to make sure that you do land some stuns on his first skill. But the second skill, don't even worry about it. You probably won't use it. That first skill is so much better than the second skill, so it's really not worth it to use him unless you're running him on Despair, which is a little bit of a waste because he is a single target nuker. Lastly, we're just going to talk about some different builds that you could potentially rune with him. You could do Violent Revenge like I did. You could actually throw on some Will runes because, you can't really ever go wrong with Will. You could also run him with Rage, but I personally just don't like Rage. His multipliers on that third skill are actually really good to the point where you don't need too much attack power or crit damage to really make him hit hard. You guys were seeing there, he was hitting almost 40k damage, and you're looking at his stats right now. Just besides the fact that his skill set is a little bit weird and kind of set up in a different way that you would expect him to be a lot less versatile. But in this situation, he's actually really versatile. I use him in Guild Wars quite often with Varad, and with him, since he stuns a lot, and Varad obviously stun locks or freeze locks, it's actually quite easy to make the enemy never move. So with him and Varad, I know you guys probably don't have Varad, you could probably actually just throw in some other type of unit like Orion. It's actually quite awesome. I'm not going to lie. Just playing around with him a little bit, I've actually kind of grown a little bit fond of him. So maybe he will end up not on my list for the top 5 or top 10 worst Snap 5. If you know how to use him, he's pretty decent. And if you look at his runes, some of these runes are just kind of like if you look at this rune, this is a pretty mediocre rune. And this one has no crit rate or anything like that. So, I mean, it is what it is, guys. It's a pretty decent rune build, and he's doing some pretty nasty damage. 10k no defense break. So that's pretty freaking good if you ask me. I hope you guys enjoyed. This is Shi Hou, one of the underused and underrated monsters of the game. Let me know what you guys think about him. I know he is pretty underwhelming to some extent, but if you know how to use him right, and if you do give him a little bit of a chance, max skilled of course, then you might be surprised on how he does, on how well he performs. So let me know what you guys think, and give me some ideas on other monsters you guys would like to see. It doesn't necessarily have to be something that I already have, okay? Alright guys, I will see you all later.